mayor of Chicago is confirming tonight that the city's Macy's department store is leaving its location at the mall along the Magnificent Mile. Lori Lightfoot says it has nothing to do with widespread looting in the area, and she's announcing new steps to protect businesses and neighborhoods. Joining us now, KTTH Seattle radio host Jason Rantz. Jason, thanks so much for coming on the show tonight. I know you're in Seattle, but I want to start by asking you a quick question about Chicago, because the city's mayor has just announced a new social media task force aimed at trying to help the city monitor where the next looting may be in that city. Do you think that's going to be effective? Has Seattle or Portland had any success with that?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be effective to a point. You have to be where 16 to 24-year-olds are, and they do a lot of their organizing on Twitter and Facebook and TikTok and these other places. And while we're not dealing necessarily with intellectual heavyweights, they are smart enough to realize that when you put out a press release saying that you're going to be monitoring these sites, they might change some of their behaviors. Now, there are some kids who will still decide to do some of this organizing online, but you have to do a little bit more than simply going online and seeing some of their plans. I think ultimately what this comes down to, and we've seen this not just in Chicago, but in Seattle, Portland, D.C., and all across the country, is when you find these people in the acts of this criminal behavior, you actually have to punish them. You have to put them in jail. You have to have some sort of path to get them back on the right path so they don't continue down this journey of criminal behavior. You can't just give them a pass. And that, unfortunately, is what we've been seeing, and they don't get in trouble, so they end up doing the same behavior over and over and over again.
So Portland's preparing for another night of protests. What are you hearing right now? What are the conditions on the ground right this minute?
So right this minute is exactly what it was yesterday, and frankly what it'll be tomorrow. We can literally write the script in Portland. It'll start off relatively peaceful, and then it won't be peaceful. And we don't know.
And we've been saying this for 80 plus nights, right?
Exactly. And so, we get this word from now the Multnomah County DA, Mike Schmidt. He made the announcement a few days ago, that he essentially is not going to be charging most of the crimes that are occurring. So the arrests that are being made by the police officers there aren't actually going to go on to have any meaningful punishment, which means the same people who have been causing the problems over the course of the last several weeks will come back and continue this sort of action. They show up, they are tightly packed, they start to throw things at officers. It's hard to identify who's doing what to the officers. They pretend that there's no violence, and then all of a sudden the violence continues to escalate. And then we just do this over and over and over again, while the local authorities there are just putting their hands up saying, look, what do you want from us? You're not allowing us really to engage with these protesters / rioters. When we do engage, you're not actually punishing, and you've got a city council there and a mayor who really don't seem interested in pursuing this seriously. It's
certainly a tough position that the state police, law enforcement in general, have been put in that city. Yeah. A big picture here, though, Jason, I want to zoom out a bit and talk about what these protests, riots, all the looting, the cost that it is taking in these cities across the country. We've got a new article up on the foxnews.com website, and the numbers, the cost that we have found, it's pretty staggering. I just want to show you some of the numbers here. But the big picture is that, quote, although the total financial fallout from the protests is still unknown, it will likely eclipse the Los Angeles riots in 1992, which until this year was the most expensive, costing the city $1.4 billion. That number's adjusted for inflation. But, in Minneapolis, they're looking at about $500 million. In Portland, the cost is $23 million and counting. I mean, these are just huge amounts of money, and it doesn't seem like a lot of people are talking about it.
It isn't, and it's not even just the economic realities, which is, of course, incredible. But these are dreams that are lost, right? These are businesses that are being destroyed, but it's also a general malaise. We're going through a pandemic. People are struggling economically as it is, and now they're not being able to go to work because some rioter decided to show up and take out their ideological grievances on a business. And then you've got the people who are living around police stations who are seeing that their neighborhoods are coming under assault, whether it's in Portland, Chicago, or Seattle, and you just get tired. You just get angry, you just get sad, and at some point you don't quite know what to do. And, you know, I live in a neighborhood that is a little bit separated, but not that separated. And I see these images and these videos, and as a talk show host, I'm talking about it all the time. And I got to tell you, it is emotionally draining. And I can't imagine what so many of these other people are going through on top of the pandemic. And it's just so much more than the economic realities. And I don't think enough politicians are taking that into account. And I have a feeling that come November, a lot of this is going to start percolating up to that point. And I think a lot of people might be surprised by some of these results when people actually get to vote.
Well, Jason, I'm sorry it's emotionally draining for you and so many others, but we really do appreciate you coming on and sharing your perspective there in Seattle. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
You bet.